أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I begin, as I always begin, in the name of Allah, whose grace I seek in this and all other matters. Assalamu alaikum. I can't believe it's only been 2 weeks since the last Friends Along the Way. I feel like I've climbed a mountain in the meantime. So it is especially my honor and pleasure to have two of the most amazing progressive Muslim women in all of Indonesia. There's only a handful. No, I'm just kidding. There's lots of really amazing women, but these two are up at the top, especially for me. And also, as they talk a little bit about their lives, I hope you will see that they're amazing for the whole thrust that we're trying to make for gender justice and human dignity. We're going to do by age. So first I will introduce Ibu Liz Mustasfira Marcos, who was born in West Java. She actually put the year there, 1959. Oh, baby. She is director of Rumah Kitab Bersama, or just Rumah Kitab. She's a senior gender expert, researcher, and trainer in the areas of women's rights, child marriage prevention, and gender and fundamentalism. She earned a master's in medical anthropology from the University of Amsterdam and did her undergraduate study at IAIN Jakarta, which is particularly in the Faculty of Usuluddin. And she learned anthropological field research directly from her mentor, Dr. Martin van Brunsen. And since 2013, she herself mentors researchers at Rumah Kitab. Her photo essay book on gender, poverty, and justice is based on her study in 8 regions in Indonesia with support from AIPJ DFAT, and it's called A Journey Against Defeat, which was published first in 2015 and then republished in 2018. She has worked with international agencies such as the Asia Foundation, Islam and Civil Society, for the Aceh Post-Tsunami Program, and the Australian-Indonesian Partnership for Justice, Gender Equality, Disability, and Social Inclusion. She co-wrote a manual on gender training with an Islamic perspective, Dawah Fiqh Concerning Women, Manual for Course on Islam and Gender, with Dr. Faqiuddin Abdul Qadir and Kiai Hussein Mohammed for the Fahima Institute in Cirebon in 2007, 2008, and 2009. She was a trainer for Sisters in Islam 2019 with Dr. Nur Rofiah, and for the Musawa Network in 2018 with some of the resource persons like Dr. Nur Rofiah, myself, Dr. Amna Wadud, Dr. Ziba Mir Husseini, Dr. Khalid Masood, and Zaina Anwar. A collection of her opinions about women's perspectives on gender and Islam was published as a book, Marabut Tafsir, in 2021. Please, Ibu, you have the floor.
Yeah, this book. Thank you, Aminah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Actually, I'm getting nervous because but I'm honored to be part of this project, Aminah. This is a very wonderful project, Friends Along the Way. Because I think this is not only documenting your path, your way, but also us. So for example, I learned about Umaima from your story, Friends Along the Way. So actually, we have been friends for more than 35 years. If I'm not mistaken, we met for the first time in Bangladesh or in KL for women living under the Muslim law, thanks to Sabia Ahmad. And then we met again for the program Fiqh and Nisa in KL. And I remember we met in Nepal in 2002. You were the resource person with Kacha Ali, and I was the co-facilitator for Zaina Anwar for Islam and Civil Society, South Asia, the Ford Foundation. And on, we met again 2009, maybe 13, in Pamulang. You were in Pamulang in 2013 or 9, Amina? We met with Nur there to prepare the training for Musawa, and several times we organized, I as a facilitator or co-facilitator, and and Nur Rofiah and Dr. Ziba were the resource person. So, and finally you moved to Bogor, become my neighbor, and now you are in Yogyakarta. So here you are, and here we are. So many spots in your life that I was witness actually of your path. So wonderful, Amina. So I would like to start with my background. So actually, every time when you tell the story, when you share your identity as a Muslim, feminist, women, what else, the Afro-America, Black, or maybe single mother, to me it's quite familiar, because I in somehow have that experience, maybe as a minority, not really with the experience of being discriminated, but as a minority, at least for two things. It's related to my cultural identity, and the second one is related to my religiosity. I was born in, as you mentioned, I was born in West Java, in Ciamis. It's very close to the beach. We went there, Amina, in Pangandaran. So this is the borderline between the West Java and Central Java. While my parents came from the Central Java, so technically they are the migrate from the Central Java to West Java. And so in my kampong, majority of them are Sundanese, the subculture of the Indonesian. Yeah? While I myself, because my parents came from Java, so of course we are hold the identity as a Javanese. The problem for me, because my father actually hold the identity as a leader, former leader, so enjoying the status as an elite, while I myself as a children, so I have to carry two identity at the same time. Sundanese, because I was born there, and Javanese, because I have to carry my identity. While Javanese in my culture, in my area, were considered, as the lower class, the working class, was a lot of the stigma against them. So at the end, then I feel like I don't want to be connected as a Javanese. So it's a pity, because everybody knows that I am a Javanese. So it's very difficult to. I remember when I was in elementary school, I even want to change my blood. I don't want to carry my Javanese culture, because with the stigma identity. Then later on, when I was in Jakarta in university, I just realized, oh, okay, being Javanese is okay, because Javanese is the majority and the ruling class, quote unquote. But in Kampung, I really suffer with that identity. The second problem for me as a minority was my mother came from the Muhammadiyah tradition. So my grandmother from my mother's side was a batik trader from Yogyakarta. And my father came from the Banyumas in Central Java, was related to pesantren, but very different kinds of pesantren to NU. This is like the local Wahhabi pesantren, very strict, very Puritan, and at the end make me I have to carry that identity as a Muhammadiyah with the very strict in way to perform my religiosity. While I stay in West Java, at that time in my kampung, they perform like local religions. So it's like in Bali, combination between Hindu and the local religions. So the way they performed to me as a child was really wonderful. I love the way they perform as a Muslim, local Muslim, yeah. Because, for example, they bring the offering to the river, bring the offering to the rice field during the harvest with a lot of food, so wonderful and joyful. While I myself, as a child, I have to perform as a Muhammadiyah and Salafi, was very strict at home. Every night have to read Quran with a very strict from my father. Even he used the ratan, because I have to be read Quran correctly, something like that. So it's very painful for me when I was a child, the religiosity that I have to carry on. But then as a lesson learned, I think it's very important then for me when I was become an anthropologist, because then I can understand the variety of the religiosity, the diversity of the way how people perform their religiosity, and also become very sensitive of being relate to minority identity. So that about my background. Maybe Nur can continue with the background, and then I can come back with my education.
Okay, thank you. Actually, we're not going to break it up because it's going to be too complicated for me. You can talk about your religious background maybe for another 5 to 7 minutes, and then I will introduce Nur and she can talk about her background. Thank you.
Okay, so I think the important thing about the religiosity is related to my education. So because I came from the Muhammadiyah family, so my parents didn't send me to pesantren, even though my grandfather from my father's side, the founder of the pesantren. So then I followed the education in Muhammadiyah. Muhammadiyah is considered, I mentioned, Puritan in somehow, but modernist. And when I was in high school, my parents sent me to the government school, no longer with the private school like Muhammadiyah. So in my family, the education is only two kind of education: science or religious teaching, religious study. So there is no opportunity for me to, for example, choose the social science, even though I like the social science. But lucky enough that my sister was the professor at UIN Jakarta. She said that good for me to take the faculty of Usuluddin, because then in Usuluddin I learned about the history, philosophy, sociology, even research method. And the most I like was the tasawwuf. I love tasawwuf when I was in Faculty of Usuluddin, so the Department of Comparative Religions. So then I took for my, we call it a scripsi master, my thesis master, I did research. It's like a grounded research about the small tariqat organization in West Java. Actually, this tariqat originally from Libya, Idrisiya. Someone brought this tariqat from Libya to Jabal Abu Ghubais in Mecca, and my grand sheikh Idrisiya brought from Jabal Abu Ghubais to Tasikmalaya in West Java. So I was interested to this organization, Tarikat organization, not to relate to the teaching itself, but the relation between Tarikat with the people, in particular the poor people, because a lot of poor people involved in this Tarikat Idrisiya. So that the momentum I met with Martin von Breunissen, my mentor for the future, when I study about the anthropology directly from him. That's all, Amina. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I will get back to you. And Dr. Nur Rofiah is a lecturer of the methodology of Quranic interpretation at postgraduate programs of the Institute for Quranic Science in Jakarta, Indonesia. She's also a national board member of the LKKNU, a wing organization of the largest Indonesian Muslim organization called Nahdlatul Ulama, that is responsible for family issues, and a national board member of the Rahima and Alimat, that are two amongst three Muslim NGOs that organized the first Indonesian Women's Ulama Congress in 2017. I'm going to come back to that again a little bit later. Nur is also a researcher and a facilitator on Islam and gender issues, who has done some research on marriage and family issues. Now she is facilitating national training of trainers organized by the Ministry of Religion Affairs for the marriage preparation course. At the moment, Dr. Nur has just initiated a cultural movement called Ngaji Kiadaling Gender Islam, known as Ngaji KGI, which is a study group of gender justice of Islam, which she does at her house and also moving from city to city. Dr. Nur, you have the floor.
Before pandemic. Thank you, Amina. I don't know how to explain myself, but I'm very happy to join this program. Actually, I'm not your friend, Amina, but your students. So I know you before I met you from your books, your articles, when I was a student of university in 1990s. That is the crucial time for me as a female Muslim, because this time also I started to become confused as a female Muslim. Fortunately, I was a student of Tafsir Hadith. So I have many opportunities to discuss about Al-Quran and women in the class with my student and lecturers. And also after that, and then we met also in some trainings of Musawa and Sisters in Islam. And I remember first time I met you, I was very nervous because I will be in the same forum with you as a resource person. So I was very nervous. It's just like how if I explain something wrong according to my teacher. Okay, this is how I know you, Amina, and I think you and also Mbak Liz is two among many people who are responsible about my situation now, that I criticize many interpretation of Islam, for example. And thank you very much for both of you. My background, I was born in 1971 in the religious enough family, and because my father was a village religious leader, so my father teach Islam in many villages, and my mother also an activist. I just realized that my mother was an activist because she was very active in female wing organization of Nahdlatul Ulama, Muslimat NU. So and then but my mother died when I was in the second class of elementary school, and then my father also died when I was in the sixth grade of elementary school. And then after that, I went to pesantren and lived there for junior and senior high school in the Islamic boarding school in different province, which is East Java. I was born in the Central Java. 6 years, I live in a pesantren. This is a female pesantren led by single female religious leaders. So I think we call it Bunyai Jamila. She is the first strong woman I known in my life, because her husband died, but she ruled everything from pesantren development, the building, until leading the prayers of students, santri. So I have role models in pesantren. So even I don't have parents, my own parents, but I still have a strong figure to be a role model. But during 6 years, of course, I don't know the gender perspective. So we just learn Islamic teachings, akhlaq, aqidah, fiqh, tafsir, hadith, and etc. We memorize many verses, hadith, and other lessons. And after that, I continue my study at Islamic State University. We call it IAIN, Sunan Kalijaga, Yogyakarta, where Amina is known as a teacher there, at the Tafsir Hadith department. So when I was a student of senior and junior high school, because it is only female pesantren and only female students, I was very active. And then after becoming a student of university, and the students are mixed between male and female. And I'm very sad because I'm afraid only to speak in the class. I was very sad because I know my male friends, my male classmates, very active speaking in the class. And I was very afraid to speak, to give opinion. And I feel that my classmates' opinions are not that good. I believe that my opinion somehow is better, but I'm afraid. So I realized that it is, I think this is the first time I feel become difficult as a woman. So my male classmates are very free. They speak everything. They debate. But I was just silent for many time, for many years. And then I start to read your book, your article, Mbak Liz articles also at journal Ulumul Quran and Nawal El Sadawi's books. And then I started to change my opinion about men. That men is okay, they are great, but woman can also be great because woman can have opinion. And then I start to be confident. And then I start to speak and to debate. Even I debate my lecturer. One lecturer taught us that A is for God. So we have grade A, B, C, D, E. A is the highest. And one of my lecturer, Hadith lecturer, said that A is for God. So he won't give A to any student. And then I debate them. Why the difference between God and students is only between A and B. God supposed beyond A, B, C, D. And then the lecturer was angry and said to me, you can say so after you are able to answer my examination. And then the examination comes, he give an Arabic questions. At that time, I could understand the question. So I feel that the Arabic is not that high. It is a simple Arabic. And then I tried to answer in Arabic. And then what happened is very surprised me because the lecture give results and there are 2A in the list. One is for my friends whose Arabic is very excellent, and another one is for me. but this is the most the most the most impressive A for me, because it is a symbol of changing mind of my lecturer. So this is the story about how being a female student is sometimes different from from being male students. And after that, I continue my study in Turkey, and I think I post my reading, my discussion about Islam and gender. But in Turkey, during 5 times, I learned many things also about gender and experience many interesting things. For example, every time the Islamic political party wins the election, then the pressure from governments to Islamic symbols in Turkey becomes stronger. And I think it is twice that university force students, female students, to open our jilbab. So for me, it is very bad, because I see my female friends, students, are very confused to choose between whether they will hold their jilbab, but they will lose their university, or they continue become a student of university, but they then open jilbab because they believe that jilbab is wajib. And this is the interesting things that I never see in Indonesia, is that many female Turkish female, they use wig to replace jilbab. So my female lecturer in Fakultas Ilahiyat or Usuluddin in Ankara University also use wig, false hair, use wigs to cover their head, and long dress, and etc. So they believe that they use jilbab, but government don't see them as using jilbab either. And similar things also I found in Afghanistan through the Kandahar movie. And it is not a woman, it is not female, but male who need to what you call it, rengosi lembak. What is it in English? So they also have false
Mustache.
Apa Mbak?
Mustache.
Yeah.
Mustache. Okay.
Big beard.
False one.
Yeah.
The false one. So if they want to go out from home, they use that, and then when they come back and then become safe at home, they put it out. Okay, so this is a very interesting. And then I finished my master and PhD in tafsir from Ankara University, and then I back to Indonesia and become a lecturer of tafsir in a university, in an institute that is known as Male Institute, because almost all students are male, but now they start to also invite female students. But most this institute is still dominated by men. So it is very often for me to teach in one class about 15 until 30 30 students, all male, and I'm a single female as a lecturer. And then we discuss about Al-Quran and women. And this is very interesting because the questions from students are just the same. Polygamy, and then wife beating, nushuz, and etc. I discussed this since I become a lecturer. So new students coming with the same questions. So I can guess what they would ask me. So interesting. And at the same time, I also engage with some NGOs, women, Muslim NGOs like Rahima and Alimat. Uh, that is always discuss also about Islam and gender. So the very big impact of this situation as academician and then as women activists is the way to approach Al-Quran. My way to approach Al-Quran really changed, because when I with my students discuss about family leadership for Islam, for example, they will start from text. Anisa 34, clear that the leader of the family are male, ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala nisa. But when we discuss about this with women activists, we start from realities. And in Indonesia, millions families headed by women. So it is not whether women are allowed to be the head of household or not. The reality is there. So what we can do to the family that don't have any male as the head of household. So the problem is really different. And also in other issues. Okay, Amina, I will stop here.
Thank you very much. I actually want to say that, I started this program, Friends Along the Way, because people like Liz that I have known and worked with for 25 years are still working. I mean, I don't mean to say that, we should not also retire, as our friend Zaina just retired. Finally, she's so happy. But what I mean is that you start off a relationship with people and you have the opportunity to grow and learn with those people. And it's one of the most joyous experiences of Islam for me, is working a long time with people who, they keep their trajectory towards, equality and justice. And they're not afraid, as Dr. Nur said, they're not afraid to interact with Islamic principles in the context of the lived realities. And for me, it is this part of the world, Malaysia, Indonesia, but particularly Indonesia, that really challenged me to get out of my head and out of the text. And the way that it is done has been a way that has been faith affirming. I tell everybody Indonesia is my favorite country, and they're like, why is it your favorite country? Well, it's not just because it's the tropics and I love the weather, but it's also because there is this wedding between a very high level of intellectual Islam wedded to social justice, and also on a trajectory of spiritual wellness. I don't see that combination working so well together anywhere else in the world, and I've been to quite a few places. So I always feel very comfortable here because if it is about activism, the intellectuals, will still have some grounding. And if it is about spirituality, the activists will also have some connection. So I don't have to choose between those things. And, that's one of the things that I've enjoyed sharing with Ibu Liz. I live in Indonesia now, and I'm very happy to live in Indonesia now, but it's like 100% because of Ibu Liz, because I came for a visit. And we found, some houses in her neighborhood that were quite affordable. And of all the houses, I chose the one that was in the most disrepair. Because I had a vision. And so then I, paid the rent for the house. And then I went back to Malaysia to get the rest of my things and left some money for a contractor. And Ibu Liz brought my house to paradise. When I came back, I just fell in love again with this house. So I was very happy there for 2 years, most of the pandemic. And we have had some amazing experiences, not only, at the Buddhist temple, at the top of the hill after I got dingy, but also, visiting this beautiful architectural creation of a famous Javanese Muslim architect. The tea plantations, and when we go to tea plantations, it's not just to see the green, which is beautiful, but it's also to learn about the housing development for the workers and how that works. So whenever I go with Ibu Liz, I also learn so many things, but the things that I experience are so beautiful. I want to ask you, let me just say a few things about Nur. Every time that Nur says she's my student, I get goosebumps. She's like she will be like the most, we like never literally was she my student, but because she came down the path of interrogating Quranic text, after I had, gone down that path, it's kind of fair. But the other thing is that she's so brilliant. When she comes up with things with regard to the Quran, I think to myself, wow, why didn't I think of that? Because she's like so creative and so innovative, so sincere, and she never stops, asking questions. So had she been my student, it would have been my greatest delight. But instead, I can just be, like a little bit happy that she, says that I am her teacher, although we're never teachers. And in fact, she's teaching me. And I've decided that my goal in taking courses in Bahasa is that I want to follow her around when she does her study group of the gender justice of Islam with Engaji KGI. If I say to myself, the level of Bahasa that I want is the level where I can understand Nur, whatever she says. You're my goal. You are, so one day you'll see me in your audience, and I'll be taking notes in Bahasa and be like, okay, now I'm there. I can understand her because I don't want to miss one word of her brilliance. I really want to ask about this experience with the creation of the first in the world Muslim Women's Ulama Congres. And why don't we reverse the order and we start with Dr. Nur. And just for a few minutes, tell me a little bit about your experience so Ibu Liz can also, and then we can open up to the gallery, please.
Yeah. Thank you. But I think I have to add something important before we talk about the KUPI, because there was a very important momentum and bridging situation before became a feminist Muslim. It's very important that we start actually like a conjunction between the feminist secular and feminist Muslim. To be honest, I learned it's different from Dr. Nur that's starting jump to the feminist Muslim ideas, while I myself actually it start from the feminist secular. I learned from some feminist secular like Nur Shabani here and Julia Suryakusuma, who introduced me about how to use a feminist perspective, in particular in the field, because at the time I was starting as a researcher. I did research on tea plantation and rubber plantation, against about the worker there, the female worker there. And then before the conference, before Beijing, we start with the program of Fiqhun Nisa, the Islam and reproductive rights. I think this is a very important moment too, because we start to learn about the Islamic teaching and interpretation. I remember at the time Wardah Hafid is one of the pioneer of how to connect between feminist secular and feminist Muslim. Wardah introduced us with the work of Rifat Hassan. We then discussed with Rifat Hassan, and we, of course, we learned from Rifat about the methodology. But at the same time, I remember the Kiai Hussein was there. Kiai Hussein introduced us the theory of usul fiqh. So it's taken from the local tradition, from the pesantren and so many kitab kunings, and how to interpret and how to use the methodology that relevant and valid and also accepted in Indonesian society, in particular in the pesantren. That is why I start with the Fiqh An-Nisa with the P3M, the Indonesian Society for Pesantren Community, where then Nur study about that for the dissertation, yeah, Nur. The book of Islam and Islam and reproductive health. So the conjunction, I think, is keyword for Islam in Indonesia. At the end, we can organize the what we call the KUPI. I think it's very typical. You didn't find it in any country. I think it's because the conjunction between feminist Muslim and feminist secular, and we have the same enemies, which is the regime of New Order. So we learn about pesantren, about the gender, for example, localizing gender, because it's very important. For example, after I finish from Amsterdam, because at the time I was, I have a feeling burnout, and then Ford Foundation sent me to Amsterdam. When I come back, I work with the Asia Foundation for Islam and Civil Society, and then the tsunami happened. I went to Aceh and started to use the Islamic perspective and local custom, local tradition, how to combine between the idea about feminism, gender, Islam, and Syariat Islam in Aceh. And I think it works because we introduced them the idea about the minority. Aceh also have the feeling as a minority. So it's easy for me to introduce about gender because they have the feeling, the experience of being a minority. And then after that, I retired from Asia Foundation, and I start with the Rumah Kitab and study about child marriage. Child marriage was the issue, the important issue that was discussed on KUPI. Yeah.
Yes, Nur? Silakan.
May I add something?
You're still mute. Yes, we will
Okay.
have question answers in just a bit.
Okay. Something that is also important is our government, especially when Gus Dur become president, he had a policy on gender mainstreaming in every ministries and also universities. So including Islamic universities has a gender mainstreaming center until now. So there are many Islamic studies scholars who has gender perspective. And then the other things also, there are some NGOs who are concerned on Islam and gender issues. They work for a long time and train many religious leaders, female and male, especially Rahima, who has initiative of this Congress. Rahima has training on female ulama. This program is 1 year, 3 days in 3 months. So the participants will collect it in one place for 4 days, and then they back to their community, and then it is about 2 months or 3 months, and then collect it again during 1 year. So many alumni of these trainings, and then Rahima think about the reunion of the alumni. And then when Rahima told this idea to Alimat and Fahmina, and then the three institutions, the three NGOs think about having the bigger event. And then we agreed to have the Congress. So it is not limited by the alumni, but the female ulama of Indonesia in large areas. And it is not, and when we call women ulama, it is not biological terminologies. It is an ideological terminologies. So women ulama is ulama, both male and female, who has women's perspective on Islam. So
I love that idea. I love the idea that it's women and men who look from a woman's perspective. I love that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yes. It was about 700 ulamas from many parts of Indonesia, from academicians and then from grassroots ulamas who joined this Congress. And then something that is for me very interesting is the changing of the process of Islamic knowledge is producing. So the way the ulama produce Islamic knowledge is really different, because women not only become an object in the knowledge system, but as the subject. So it is women who ask questions, and then women also prepare the answer, the data, and then they analyze the Islamic texts, Indonesian state constitution, for example. So they proceed all the knowledges from the beginning until the result, and this is the very different when they discuss about child marriage, for example. Until now, many religious forums dominated by male, when they talk about child marriage, they still think that child marriage is good. It is maslahat, because child marriage is maslahat for male, because they want pregnant, they want a baby delivery, they want be nifas, and they will not breastfeed, and etc. So for male, child marriage it doesn't give a danger, even danger. But for male, but for female, it is different. So when the Congress, the women ulama sit together to discuss child marriage, we know there were female ulamas who know Islamic texts very well. It is not only ayat Quran, but also hadith, also Arabic classical books, traditional books. They know them very well. And at the same time, some of them also experience child marriage. So they know how bad and how dangerous child marriage for woman, for female, for child, for female child especially. So there was no debate that child marriage is dangerous. So then they produce fatwa that to prevent children from any dangerous marriage is obligation.
And this is the first official fatwa against child marriages. And as you say, it's constructed by scholars of Islam, both male and female, and the importance of knowledge and knowledge production is just one of the, I think, important ingredients for the way in which progressive Islam happens in Indonesia. People are immersed in the subject matter. They know the traditions, and at the same time they keep their eye on their own lived realities. Before we go, I just wanted to know if there were any closing remarks from Ibu Liz or Dr. Nur, because we are actually over time.
Regarding the KUPI, I think as you mentioned that KUPI is the first and so far the only organization in the Congress in the world that we sit together and talk about the three things. The first one about the impact of environment disaster, environment bad situation, and implication to women, in particular child marriage and violence against women. It shows us that when we talk about the Islamic teaching and gender, we always start, as you mentioned, live reality and taken from the research. The research about child marriage has already been maybe started 10 or 15 years ago. Nur Sabani also worked on that. But the important thing is how to connect between the reality and the text, like Dr. Nur mentioned. And the important thing as well, how to do dialogue between the activism and the knowledge production in university, in particular in UIN. because it is this also the uniqueness of the Islamic feminist movement in Indonesia, because we have the knowledge production not based on only from the university research, but it's make a connection between what happened in the society in the grassroots. It was brought by the activists, by the Aisyah, Fatayat, like Bu Nur mentioned, and we bring the idea to the level of the knowledge production. So this. So my position, if you want to conclude, I think it's like the bridging between the university or the academia with the activism, between government and civil society and media, between feminist secular and the Muslim feminist secular. So many parties. We government, for example, they surrender, quote unquote, to us and ask us how to deal with the child marriage issue, for example. So here Mirisa maybe can add her experience from Aceh. Aceh situation was very difficult, but still we can talk about so many things relate to the how to deal with text and context, the interpretation and reality. That our role actually. Thank you, Amina.
Thank you, Dr. Noor. Before we ask Marissa, if you want to add something for closing.
Thank you, Amina. I think the big lesson of my journey as female Muslim is how important to integrate women experiences into Islamic interpretation, Islamic teachings, Islamic concept, and etc. Because women has been marginalized not only in reality but also in mind. So, for example, when we said that the mission of Islam is to to create blessing to universe, we must integrate, including to women.
Are you okay, Nur?
Batuk aja gatel nih, Mbak. Oke, Amina. Thank you.
Mute, Amina.
Sorry. Marissa, do you have something you want to add before we close based on the comment made by Ibu Liz? Yes, Silicon.
Yes. Well, actually, first of all, I really have to thank Ibu Liz, because Ibu Liz was the one person who actually introduced me to the two people that I really admire since my university undergraduate time. That are Ibu Amina Wadud and then actually Mas Ulil Absar Abdallah. And it was a great opportunity for me to be included in the launching of this book, Fikih Perwalian, in which Ibu Amina delivered the keynote speech, and also Mas Ulil was, after delivering the keynote speech, also being the discussants of the book. So I think, and another thing as well, because of Bali's very vast networking in terms of feminist Muslims, I was also introduced to Ibu Nur Rofiah, again thanks to Ibu Liz. And somehow by joining Ibu Liz facilitating discussion, I think back in Ramadan 2 years ago, I also had a chance to finally meet Ibu Nur Syahban in person. So actually the appreciation that I would like to convey to the work of Ibu Liz is actually because I'm really amazed with Ibu Liz's ability to dissect this layer of operations, because we tend to miss things. Like, for example, me as a person who grew up in the province of Aceh, being educated there for my basics education level until senior high schools, I tend to take religion as it was. Even though deep in my heart, I have so many questions, I have objections, I feel pained, I feel being oppressed, but then Ibu Liz also have this very unique way of exposing us to, being critical. And again, for me, about this child marriage is something very personal, because I was the third generation that finally free from child marriage. Yes, Ibu Liz came up with this, what I called before, layer of operations, by introducing these two terms. First is about this social orphan, and second about disguised power work. Those two things are very, very powerful in trying to discuss about the reality of child marriage, while at the same time pushing for the policy changes. The second thing, I came from this, I sort of having this knowledge sector experience, and the work of Ibu Liz with Rumah Kitab or with another organization actually is very important, because it combined the two component of the knowledge sector, which is the intermediary and the supply component. So not only Ibu Liz with her work with Rumah Kitab keep producing very important gender knowledge, but also Ibu Liz with Rumah Kitab play a very important role in being the intermediary. So like conveying the message to policymakers. So this is a very unique. I'm glad that such a gap was filled by Ibu Liz's role along with Rumah Kitab, because I start feeling suffocating, because somehow for the past 4 years, Indonesia start being a lot more conservative than it used to be. So I think this moderate voices introduced by Ibu Liz, also introduced by Ibu Nur Rofiah, also being gauged by Ibu Nur Syahbani through her work, is very important. And I think last but not least, I was happy that actually I read several books about written from a feminist perspective, but actually I could tell that Merebut Tafsir is very important, because it's really relevant to the women's day-to-day life, women's day-to-day experience. And I recently got some people who finally able to bought the book reach out to me, send me message saying that they were glad that it was such a compilation of Ibu Liz's way of thinking, because they also some of them found it very hard to come to grips to Ibu Liz's comprehensive thought about Merebut Tafsir, because it was spread in virtual media. So it was in Ibu Liz's Facebook posting, or it was in Rumah Kitab posting. So I really hope that, I don't know, I really want to see so many things came out of this very important people networking, which consists of Ibu Aminah Wadud, Ibu Liz Marcus, Ibu Nur Rofiah, and also Ibu Nur Syahbani Kaca Sungkana. It's my very best wishes to see many things fruitful came out of this networking and this very close relationship as a Muslim feminist. I think I will close my
Thank you for reminding.
Risa is an editor of the book. So she is an editor of this book.
Thank you for reminding us that the work will ever go on until we have equality and justice. And thank you all for joining me. So thank you everyone and good night and salam alaikum, selamat malam.